Today we're having a look at the NVIDIA GT 620. If the 610 is the baby brother of the 710, then the GT 620 is more like its slightly awkward cousin. It's arguably one of the most abysmal graphics cards ever produced, and we've gone and paired it with an Intel 13900K, a Z790 motherboard and 64GB of DDR5 RAM, just to make sure the CPU isn't holding anything back. With only 1GB of VRAM to its name, it's bound to be a bit of a laugh. But for all the wrong reasons. Let's dive in, shall we? The NVIDIA GeForce GT 620 is an entry-level graphics card released in 2012. Based on the F.E.A.R architecture, it supports DirectX 11 and has a base clock speed of 810 MHz. The GT 620 has 1024MB of DDR3 memory, with 48 CUDA cores, 8 texture mapping units and 1620 shaders, all via a 64-bit interface that delivers a maximum memory bandwidth of roughly 11.2 gigabits per second, or running through the PCI Express 2.0x16 interface. In terms of connectivity, most versions provide a DVI port and HDMI port, so you could at least have two screens connected. Now, before we dive into the gameplay, here's a quick word from our sponsor. The online marketplace for CD keys and software. G2A.com, where you can find discounts on all the keys you need. Let's start with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas at 720p resolution and on the very high preset. Despite the game launching in 2006, 6 years before the GT 620 hit the market, you might expect it to run a smooth 60 FPS. Sadly, that is not the case. So, why does this card exist if not built for gaming? The answer is straightforward. The NVIDIA GeForce GT 620 is an entry-level OEM-focused graphics card, designed primarily for basic multimedia tasks. It's also worth noting that the GT 620 came out in several variants, some of which were simply rebrands of older GPUs, like the GT 520 or the GT 530. When it comes to the GTA San Andreas, the GT 620's performance is underwhelming. The card averages just 26 FPS, with 1% lows dipping to 22 FPS and 0.1% lows dipping as low as 20 FPS. Far from ideal for a smooth gaming experience. Now, let's see if a more recent game can change our look. Up next we've got a proper classic, F.E.A.R 2 Project Origin. Running at 720p resolution again, with the graphics dialed right down this time to the lowest settings, though FSAA is switched on for a touch of anti-aliasing. It launched on the 10th of February 2009 in North America, followed a few days later on the 13th of February here in Europe, and was released across PC, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. This first-person shooter carries on the unsettling tale of Alma Wade, a psychic whose tragic past has given rise to some truly nightmarish powers. I sank countless hours into this one back in the day. Oddly enough, I never bothered with the third game. I'm fairly sure it's lurking somewhere in my Steam library. I'll have picked it up for next to nothing in a sale, so perhaps it's time to finally give it a whirl. As performance, on the GT 620, F.E.A.R 2 manages an average of 20 FPS, with a 1% low of 9 FPS and a 0.1% low dipping way down to 4 FPS. Half-Life 2 is the next timeless game to grace the NVIDIA GeForce GT 620. Running at a resolution of 720p, this time it's set to the high settings preset, with 4x MSAA for anti-aliasing, and classic effects are switched on, capturing the nostalgic charm of this title. Even though it's a rather old game, I still use it for benchmarks because it scales across a wide range of hardware. It's also one of my all-time favourite games. Yes, it does look a bit dated by today's standards, but it's simply a fun game to play. I think the reason it stood the test of time is down to the physics. Back in 2004, they were generally ahead of their time. Half-Life 2 runs better than any of the other games we've tested so far. At this point, it's hard to even call this a GPU. It's more like a basic display output. With the limited VRAM and other constraints of this card, you're unlikely to achieve constant 60 FPS gaming. We've come close, but still fell short of that goal in our testing. The GT 620 averaged 44 FPS in Half-Life 2, with 1% low of 25 FPS and a disappointing 0.1% low of just 11 FPS. The next game is Fortnite, once again running at 720p resolution with the performance mode preset and using the DirectX 11 API. This game really needs a higher frame rate, and despite my skepticism, we've actually managed it. Albeit with a few visual compromises, which seems par for the course with the GT 620. You can kind of play it, though I wouldn't exactly recommend it. Fortnite in particular benefits greatly from a high frame rate, because the gameplay is so fast paced and reaction driven, every split second of movement counts. A low frame rate can make the game feel sluggish and imprecise, which is a nightmare when every millisecond matters. Now, in Fortnite, the GT 620 averages 59 FPS, with a 1% low of 8 FPS and a 0.1% low of 5 FPS. The next game is Mafia 2, the classic edition on Steam, running at 720p resolution with the graphics dialed down low. I've also overclocked the GPU this time to 1056 MHz to try and squeeze out that little bit of extra performance, just to see if it makes any noticeable difference. Realistically though, with the frame rate being so poor to begin with, any gains are going to be marginal at best.
I don't need no dance moves.
The GT 620 manages a rather underwhelming average of 23 FPS, with a 1% low of 12 FPS and a rather dismal 0.1% low of 9 FPS. In the end, the GT 620 really does little more than what it was ever meant for. Anything beyond that, particular gaming, is a complete no-go. My ordeal with it may have well been a bit of a nightmare, but if it's giving you a chuckle, then fair play. So, when I dubbed it quite possibly the worst GPU in history, I wasn't exaggerating. It's truly one of the most dreadful bits of kit ever to come out of Team Green. If you'd like to see me put its cousin, the Gigabyte GT 710, through its paces, I have another video on that, which you can check out. The link should be up on screen about now, and I'll also leave a link in the description. Cheers for tuning in to Tech Tactics. If you enjoyed this content, do give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more nostalgic throwbacks and tech fun. I'm David James, and I'll catch you in the next one.
This one. Why don't we go back to my place and play house? You be the door and I'll slam you.
Oh, that was bad.
Hey.